Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney podcast. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, the author of the Positively Disney book series and the host of the show tonight. I just want to welcome all of you guys for taking the time to stop by this Friday evening. I know it's kind of storming here, a little bit of rain we're having, but the ducks like it, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about a duck or so in a few minutes. But first, I want to thank my sponsor, Michelle McCune, over at Years of Experience, who will put together a fabulous vacation wherever you want to go, whether it's Disney or across the world. And she now actually is booking and be actually the first point of conversation for a Disney wedding, Disney events. How cool is that? And you know what's really fun about Michelle is she will put together your bucket list, your dreams, and you can reach out to her via text message while you are on your vacation. If you have any last minute questions or things that you run into, you could reach her at mmckeown at themouseexperts.com, or you can give her a call at 732-735-1779. Well, February 19th is a special day for one young woman, Angelina Cicchino, beautiful young woman of 23, special needs lady, and she is celebrating with her family at Walt Disney World, and her mom, Michelle, is on tonight. Hi, Michelle. I hope you guys had a great day. They surprised her, bringing her to Fort Wilderness for the weekend. So I was pretty excited to see that and just had a smile in my heart when I saw her face when she drove up to their campsite. And speaking of birthdays, this is actually my birthday weekend, and I'm not sure if anybody saw what I posted, but I decided to do a little birthday fundraiser for a Moment of Magic Foundation. That one is very close to my heart. It's basically college students. They go through training and they dress in screen, I can't say that right tonight, screen accurate costumes as princesses, princes, and superheroes. And they visit the medically vulnerable children, be it in institutions or at their homes, or even via, video in the sort of the last, I think 12, 13 months at any rate. I'm raising money for them. And if you have it in your heart to donate even $5 for them. I'm trying to raise 500. I think I'm at 125 today. It will be up for a couple weeks. That would be absolutely wonderful. These guys, it's just such a win-win-win situation with these college kids volunteering, these children that get these tea parties and sometimes their last wishes, with a superhero, and the parents that are so grateful for these students doing this. So at any rate, if you can, that would be amazing. So a friend of mine back in Canada asked if I wanted a couple of magazines she found at her grandparents' house. And of course, with having Walt Disney in them, I said yes. I have to share with you this. It's so fun, and share a little bit about what I found in it. So here we have the Saturday Evening Post from November 7th, 1953, that goes for 15 cents, if you can believe that. And that cover is just a hoot and a half, because it's got the gossips of the town, watching the young couple walking down the street holding hands. But when I opened it, I have to be really careful because it's quite delicate. So inside we have, oh gosh, it's a very big magazine. Inside, we have Walt Disney contemplating there, his family up in the corner, and Clarence Nash with my guy, Donald Duck. I hope you can see it. And it's really fun because it says the amazing story of Walt Disney. When Disney first heard Clarence Nash, he cried, "That's a duck," thus 20 years ago. So that would have been 1933 at the time. Was Clark. Donald added to American folklore with Nash as the voice. For Disney, the versatile magician who makes movies with or without animals and with or without human beings is only a child at heart. I love that. Walt being a child at heart. Isn't that a perfect description of Walt Disney himself? So, as you know, Donald Duck is my guy. Mickey's got my heart, but Donald Duck is my guy. And I actually got an early birthday present for my friend Donna in California. And here is my little Donald Duck mug. And I think it is so adorable because he's got his little tail feather in the back. So I've got two Donald Duck mugs now. So I'm going to be enjoying a sip of water when I need it. But you know what was so cool is that it was actually one night in 1932, Walt and his colleagues were having a late evening conference. They were trying to figure out a major character they had to come up with. And the radio was playing softly behind them. And who was on the radio but Clarence Nash? He was doing a what do you call it? A pre-appearance. And he decided to do sort of an encore of Mary Had Little Lamb in his duck-like voice. And Walt Disney exclaimed, "That's a duck blowing his top." And it was perfect to be a foil for their dear little hearted Mickey Mouse, that he was 4 years old at the time. And they were looking for somebody a little bit rough around the edges and a little bit angered. And actually, because it was such a different sound coming across the radio, one of the guys was going to turn it down and probably turn it off completely. And Walt said, "No, turn it up. I want to hear this." So it was so funny. Clarence Nash was known as Whistling Clarence or the Birdman. And he got I guess you could say his voice of Donald, believe it or not, at the Douglas MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. And it's called MacArthur Park, but I think at one point it was called Westlake Park as well on West 6th Street in Los Angeles. He had been out of work, and he would go to the park and he would sit on a bench. And he said that the smugness of the ducks there were both amusing and basically irritating. And to pass the time away, he started mimicking them. So you can imagine this guy's out of work. He's sitting there. He said he had to because he would have gone bats, he said. And so he worked on this duck voice for hours on end, passing the time. And then he kind of added a little bit into a commercial that he was doing, a pre-show that he was doing on the radio. And gosh, the rest is history. Walt snapped him up and there you go. So I just thought it was so fun to hear. Want to say hi to Donna, who's joining me tonight as well. Thanks again, guys, for joining me. Hi, Francisco. Thank you so much. Francisco is in Pasadena. Oh my goodness, Francisco, I did not know you were there. If this is the Francisco that I know, I better be careful. I'm not 100% sure this is the Francisco I know from the Disney cruise ships. But at any rate, I am really excited about tonight's show and really excited about the weekend. It's always fun to invite guests onto the show. Sometimes they drop into my lap. Sometimes I go out and find them. But this one kind of dropped into my lap. And we just had a wonderful, wonderful conversation a few weeks ago, and she agreed to come on to the show. And how fun is that? An engineer and an Imagineer with the Walt Disney Company for 30 years. She worked with the company on so many attractions, and you would have been a part of her work if you've been to any of the parks. So without further ado, we're going to get Suzy on the line. Hello, Suzy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much, Kimberly. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm so excited because you just have a plethora of experiences and stories, and you're such a positive person. And I'm really looking forward to tonight. You have certainly done an awful lot to bring the magic to the rest of us, I'll tell you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I really appreciate being here today and sharing it with everybody. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we'll just get right into it. And I sometimes, if, the audience might ask me a question, I'll try to fit it in. But for now, we'll just kind of go with the flow here a little bit. But you worked, as an engineer and an Imagineer. Mm-hmm. with the company, have you always wanted to work for the Disney company?
Well, I'll tell you, I was actually born up in the San Fernando Valley in California, which is not very far from Disney Animated Studios.
Okay.
And we moved away when I was about 7 years old or so to Colorado. You know, I grew up getting to go to Disneyland for birthdays and things like that. And then it was gone all of a sudden when I moved to Colorado. And then when I was about 12 years old, there was a girl, she's a little older than me, had the opportunity to go back to be work with animation in feature animation. And it was the first time in my life, I think, I ever thought that, oh my goodness, she could work there.
Oh,
you know, as a kid, you don't think about that stuff. You know? So anyway, it kind of, I think that's where the dream came alive. And then from there on out, I thought, you know, why not have fun?
Oh, for goodness
And I kind of worked towards that goal. Yes. So
that's, you know, that's really amazing because, you know, as a child, you go to these places. I mean, remember when, you know, I don't know about you, but as a school child, I would think that I used to think the teachers slept at the school. I had no idea, you know, they had an actual life, right?
Exactly, right.
And so,
luckily you get, you know, that's the magic of Disney, right? You don't realize there's people there.
Yeah, exactly.
that are making the magic happen.
Exactly.
So, anyway, yeah.
No, I love it. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you actually had quite a lot bigger connection with Disney growing up that you didn't even know or realize it at first. Can you please tell everybody about that, which I think is the coolest thing in the world?
Well, okay, so I mentioned I lived in California when I was actually, my parents bought a house in the valley. It was their first house and my first house as a little kid, as a baby. And this house happened to belong to Raleigh Crump. And do you know who Raleigh Crump is?
I do,
I'm sure.
yes. And you can share with the audience who Raleigh Crump is in your own words, because I know who he is.
Okay. Raleigh Crump is a creative designer, artist that was around back when Walt Disney was still around.
Yes.
And he created some of the most iconic parts about Disney that we still think of today. Like he did the big facade for Small World, and there was a big mobile that they built, you know, for the world. What was that up in, you know, when they, I can't even think of what it's called, but you know, when they did the actual Walt Disney would take these attractions all around the world.
Oh, for the World's Fair. Right.
World Fair.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Okay. So he did a big sculpture for one of those, and he worked with it back then. He also was a main designer for the Tiki Room. You know, everybody knows and loves the Tiki Room.
Yes.
So I mean, he was a big deal.
Yes.
Back then.
And he lived in his house.
I lived in his house, and we didn't know, you know, who he was back then. And he had left behind a map, and it was a map that was conceptual art of Disneyland. And I still have that map to this day.
Wow.
I moved it with me everywhere I ever went. And he, you know, when I was in Colorado, it was kind of my friend because I could look at the map and remember the different parts of Disneyland. And there were parts on it, though, that I couldn't remember. And actually, this is how I know it was a conceptual map, because the Disneyland map I had things like Liberty Square on it and things that never actually made it into the park.
Right.
So then fast forward to 2012. You know, Raleigh was, he had made a book. It's called It's a Kind of a Cute Story. And it was, he was actually traveling, doing book signings. And my friends were like, you gotta go. And my mom was telling me, she goes, you gotta tell him that you lived in his house.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you know, and so I'm like, okay, Mom, okay. And I went. And it was so funny because it was such a nice connecting moment with him. You know, I have my book and I'm asking him for an autograph. And then I bought one for my mom, and then I told him the story that we lived in a house.
Ah,
He got so excited, and we were
of
able to like talk
course.
about really specific things, like
Yeah.
there were these pomegranate trees that are in the back, and he had koi pond in the front, and it's just a little simple house, but he did some really cool things to it that made it really stand out. So
Wow.
anyway, so
That
that's my connection.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. I mean, it would be so rare anyways to meet somebody that, lived in your childhood home, really,
Right.
whether you're famous or not, but
Exactly.
that's so cool.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I would love to see, I think I'm trying to remember if I've seen that map of yours yet. Something tells me I've seen a little bit of it, but I'm not 100%
I'll have
sure.
to,
Yeah.
I'll have to share it. I'll have
Yeah.
to share it
I think that's so
sometime.
fun. Well, when you mentioned about the Liberty Tree Square, I mean, that's in Walt Disney World. That got
Of
put over
course.
there,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean,
Right. Right.
they went through the
Yeah, and I
process.
think it was called like Liberty Land or something.
Oh,
I mean, it
yeah.
wasn't even
Okay.
Liberty Square, So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was really in its early stages
Right.
of development back then. Yeah.
How fun is that? Oh my goodness. Well, something that I was so surprised to hear, and I don't know, I've never worked inside the company and that, so I wouldn't know any better, but I always used to think that, if you have an attraction, then there's people that just work on that one attraction. Like you're not sort of working all over the park, but my gosh, you have worked on almost all of the attractions.
Many, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
many,
I
many.
have.
Yeah. So can you let's talk about some of those. Tell us about some of those that you've worked on.
So my job is kind of a behind the scenes job,
Right.
and it's something that engineers do. I'm called a show control engineer. What that means is we build the control systems and we build the software and everything that makes the show happen inside of the attractions.
Okay.
So when I first started at Disney, it was, back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I started on some small things like the shooting arcade. They had to make a couple changes to the animation.
Okay.
But then that builds over time. And my first big project was when Toontown got built. And so that was very exciting for me, as you can imagine, because literally got to work to make just about everything that moved or made some kind of audio noise. I triggered all that, and I built the system that made that all possible. And so even though I don't have anything specifically to do with the audio or the lighting, it's basically the show control system is kind of the conductor of the whole thing. So it like pulls everything together into a cohesive working show. And so that's my work. And so from there, and it was back in the 90s. I mean, that was early when they were just starting to use computers to do
right. Because the one that I posted was pretty ancient. But you know what I loved about that picture too is your hard hat had Mickey on it.
Right.
I loved it.
Yeah, well, we had that was my that was Mickey's Toontown. That was the original emblem, and they put them on all the hard hats, and that was kind of your badge to know whether you belonged on site or not. So anybody who was working on Mickey's Toontown had that hard hat, and I still have the hard hat.
I was going to ask that. That's awesome. Well, I love Mickey's Toontown. I mean, they took that out of Walt Disney World, right, to do the whole other Fantasyland expansion. And, I had actually gone to Disneyland. It was like a couple years ago now with my family for the first time. I'd been there a few times, but honest to goodness, like spending time in Toontown was so fun. It was like a little town, like I felt like a total little kid, It was great.
It was neat. I mean, it is neat. I think they're in the process of giving it a nice little facelift, now, and I think it'll be beautiful when they actually do reopen,
Yeah.
the park again in California.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
hopefully someday we'll all get to see it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
But,
coming around the corner. I think the good things are
yeah, good.
coming up here. So that's great. Okay, so
Yeah.
Toontown, one of your big projects. Tell us about some others.
Well, my most memorable, actually, right after Toontown, we did the Roger Rabbit ride, and those are attractions. And then I got to work on the show Fantasmic, which for me was it was an amazing experience. I did the systems that controlled the water effects in that
Wow.
show.
Wow.
And so that gave me a couple things. I got to sit alongside the creative director, who at the time was Barnett Ritchie. Barnett just received the Legend Award just last year.
Oh.
And so she was the creative director of that show. And so I got to sit right alongside her, and I got to choreograph the fountains. But then also, when they first were testing the mist screen, that was one of my systems. And so, before they're automated, you have manual ways to hire to, make the mist screens go up and come down.
Right.
And they were doing a test.
Yeah.
They were doing a test of the video, so they wanted to show the film on the mist screen
right.
to see what it looked like for the first time. And it was a really rainy day, and there were people standing all around the island on the shore. Fantasmic wasn't open yet.
Yeah.
And we made these mist screens go up, and of course, I'm standing out on the island to make them go up and down.
Oh, I love it.
And then the film came up, and everybody's watching. They got to see it for the first time. Of course, it wasn't in the show or anything. It was just kind of a test that they were doing. And it was so funny because I'm standing on the island and I'm looking out over the whole river, and I just see a sea of these yellow hoodies, those rain hoodies.
Rain ponchos.
So hard. Yeah, they're rain ponchos.
Yeah.
And I'm wet, they're wet, everybody's wet, but it was amazing because after it was done, everybody was clapping. They thought it was a great thing. And so we knew, then that it was going to be really fun. A really fun show.
Absolutely. I almost have tears in my eyes because I love Fantasmic. I would imagine you almost felt like Sorcerer Mickey up there, right?
I did. I did. I get to do a lot of firsts on that island because we always have to be test subjects.
Oh, yeah.
Systems that are working before we actually put, Mickey in all these precarious situations. So anyway, yes,
that
is very exciting.
You know what? I love that. I have been very fortunate to see Fantasmic both at Walt Disney World and Disneyland, and it's a very powerful show, and it's in so many ways. I would have to say it's a show that I would hope would always be there. I hope they never take it away, because they are shows, right?
Too, yeah.
I can't imagine them ever taking that away. Maybe changing up the films or whatever that they project. But I love the pirate ship even that went through. I love the characters. I love the story, the mist. I mean, that is pretty magical. And I had mentioned this to you when I spoke to you, but I want to tell the audience here too, that our voice of Mickey Mouse, Brett Iwan, it was because of Fantasmic that he actually had the spark to become Mickey Mouse and what he would do. And it was because of your work. Like it was because of your work at Disneyland.
Really cool.
With the mists of the water and the film. Like he couldn't, of course, project into there. Although what he did with his brother, was flashlights. He'd have flashlight light shows on the mist of the sprinkler at home. And he would mimic the whole show in Mickey's voice as a little boy. And isn't that fun? Like what you did
so awesome.
Influenced Brett Iwan, How
Actually,
cool.
I have to say, when we all, when everything started, this last year,
Yeah.
and we were all trying to cheer ourselves up.
Yeah.
There was a video going around of somebody who had done the whole Fantastic show in their yard. I
Oh,
don't know if
oh
it was the
yeah.
same one, but it was really cute.
The little
Those
boy.
kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah, those kinds of things come back,
Yeah.
and so it makes you realize, oh, that really is special, and that's so awesome. And it's funny because Fantasmic, when we all built it, it was only supposed to be there for, I think, like 6 years. That's it. And then they were going to change it out to be something else. And so it's just, it's an interesting thing that when you don't know when you're building these things,
right,
if it's going to be something that becomes this beloved thing that's going to be in the park forever, and now it's going on 30 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, or almost 30, I think. Yeah,
it's
a long
so
time.
it's so fun watching that show, because what I did is I did sort of the dinner at the I think the Blue Bayou restaurant with the show, and we all got those little pads to sit on, because you can actually sit down to watch it, which like on the ground. And at Walt Disney World, I know that there's certain sections people stay clear of, because those water cannons, like, you can get wet, and they warn you, of course, within a certain proximity, right? But how absolutely fun is that? Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. So I have to ask you, so, I mean, is there anything that you found challenging about some of the work that you did? Is there anything particularly that... Probably lots.
Actually, well, you know what? The biggest thing, I'll tell you, the biggest challenge, or the biggest stress, or the biggest challenge, and is billboards and radio advertising. And this is why I tell you this. As somebody who is building these things, they start putting up the billboards and getting all the advertising ready, so that people are excited to come to it.
Right.
Way before we're even done with it. Right.
Boy.
And so it was the first experience I had of this on Fantasmic. It was one of those shows where literally to build it, we worked all night. So we would start like at 6 p.m, and we did all our rehearsing and everything all night. And then, we got in the car at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were driving home and sleeping during the day and coming back. And we did that for months and months and months, right? To get it ready for everybody. And so I remember really distinctly, so you can imagine we're there all night, right? Listening to the music and watching what's going on and seeing all the technical problems and all the things that can go wrong, right? All the things that can go right too, but it's not perfect for a while. Yeah. And then you would get in your car at 6 a.m., you're dead tired, you're driving down the freeway to go home, and you would hear that music all the way home on the radio, because they're blasting it to, promote the show. Show. And then you would drive by these big billboards that are on your freeway because you happen to live nearby, and my heart would just like beat out of my chest, and so I'd go home, try to calm down, go to sleep, and then repeat it again. And the closer we got, it was like, oh my God, because they have an opening date, but they don't move that opening date. So your stuff has to work for that date, and I don't think people realize it's kind of, we talk about it all the time with these control systems and the way things happen, is we will have perfect show 2 days before. Wow. And then the day before, everything seems to fall apart. Oh, no. And it always happens. And then the opening date, everything's perfect. It is the weirdest thing, but it happens. Oh, it has happened to me. I can't tell you how many times, so it seems to be, so it's like it's almost like if nothing happens the day before opening, you're worried. Yeah, of course, of course. But you know what? It's good that it happens, obviously, the day before, get the glitches out. I mean, to have a perfect show and then have something go wrong is actually an ideal situation. Although I can imagine you guys sweating buckets, and having to make sure. It's stressful. It's stressful for us, but that's also makes it very exciting. It's a
Yeah,
very exciting job.
absolutely.
So
Well, I can imagine. I mean, who doesn't love the Fantasmic music? And I'm thinking, like you. I mean, you dreamed, I'm sure, Fantasmic for quite a few
okay.
months too, right?
Yeah. It took
Oh,
me a couple after it was open for a while. I went away and then I was doing other things. I mean,
mhm.
in Disney, but
Yeah.
it takes a couple of years, and then though you come back to the music, and it just brings back all those memories and all,
Oh,
even for me. So and
yeah.
it is very powerful. It's a powerful score,
It
and
is.
it's
Yeah.
just very cool. Yeah, it was
Oh,
neat to be a part of
oh my gosh. The next time I go to Disneyland, when I see it, I'll think of you.
that.
Or maybe you'll come along with me and we can share it
I
together.
will. Okay.
That'd be so
Yes.
fun. Oh my
That would
gosh.
be fun.
I have to ask you, because you have a unique job. I mean, first of all, an engineer. I mean, back in the day when you and I were growing up, engineering wasn't so much on the table for women. Like we had
No.
teachers or nurses or administrative assistants or whatever. I chose the teacher's
Right.
path, but I mean,
Yes.
that is. I mean, you must have been one of very few in your class. I'm thinking, if no, maybe
Yeah,
not the only.
well, it's interesting because in Colorado at the time,
Yeah.
this is way back in the late 70s, they happened to be promoting women from the various high schools that were good at math and science into the engineering program. And
Mm.
so when I went through engineering, there were actually more women at my age. And then this is way before PCs, way before
Yeah,
laptops,
yeah,
way
yeah,
before everything, right?
yeah.
So, and then there seemed to be almost like this little dark spot, like when laptops and all those things did become available, it seemed to be for a long time a boys thing. And so I
Mm.
kind of feel like a little bit, there was kind of this dark time. And then of course nowadays, everything is accessible
Right,
to everybody. But
right,
you're
right.
right. There weren't very many of us.
Yeah.
And I had my dad was an engineer.
Okay.
And so, that kind of pushed me in the direction. Although when I got older, I had a much more creative bent when I was younger. And he was really surprised. He
Oh,
told me not very long ago that I actually took that path. He
yeah.
was like, I was really surprised you're an engineer. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of strange. And I don't think I would have been one for my whole career had
Right.
it not been for my ability to do what I did at Disney.
Well, and I was just wondering now, I mean, how did you find out about, the offerings that Disney had? I mean, I mean, with that friend of yours in Colorado that went into the animation area, were you starting to kind of look at things at that point, or how did you fall? I shouldn't
So,
say fall into it because you don't fall into anything, right? Except a hole,
no,
but.
actually, yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I didn't have any connection into Disney at all back then.
Hmm.
I knew, I knew that there must be some kind of engineering department or something. There had to be a group of people that were doing something behind the scenes,
Right, right.
but I had no connections at all. At the time, I was living here in Southern California, and so I was cold calling Disneyland and trying to find information out. And at the time, they used to have this group of operators that sat. They were literally switchboard operators, and they were kind of like they kept people from getting into the backstage at Disney.
Okay.
I mean, they answered all the questions up front, but they
Right,
didn't let everybody get to the back.
right.
So I had to basically, I was running out of options because they wouldn't let me through. And so I
Mm.
literally made up a name. I made up a name, Joe Blythe. I'll never forget. I said, can I please talk to Joe Blythe in the engineering department? And it threw the operator off a little bit. She was like, And you could hear
Trying to figure out who that was.
yeah. So Joe Blythe goes, she goes, you know what? There's nobody there that by that name, but I'm going to put you through to the secretary at the time, and her name was Nada Neighbor. I'll never forget that name either.
Oh,
And
wow.
she put me through, and I talked to Nita, and I explained to her who I was and what I was trying to do, and I was just coming out of engineering school. And she put me in touch with somebody, a great gentleman by the name of Jose Cartagena. And he was there until just a few years ago. He retired. But he helped me try to find somebody to talk to. I just kept asking, who can I talk to? Here's my resume. Like I just kept saying. It took about, I think it was about 6 years later that I actually got my very first job there.
Wow.
But I never gave up. And, you know, nowadays it is, I mean, it's much easier to find somebody that works inside the company.
Right.
Or, you know, and Disney has a lot of great programs. So anyway, but for me, I just had to cold call until somebody would listen to me. So
that's amazing.
And so that's how I got in.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I mean, with computers and that we have today, we can find pretty much anybody anywhere, right? In the world.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I was
back then we had cell phones.
yeah, exactly. Gosh, I can't even imagine not having a cell phone. That just, I mean, and I have not had a cell phone all my life, obviously, but I just kind of I just can't imagine not having the technology that we have today. And I'm sure over those 30 years, you must have seen a lot of changes in technology, not only like just the fact that you have an actual laptop, or you know what I mean, but from the original computers that you guys use. But I would imagine it would have been quite interesting to see how it changed
when
over the
we
years.
started. Sure. I mean, even back when I was a brand new engineer, I think the engineering department were the first ones to get computers. And in fact, when you think it was pre-email, right?
Right, so of course,
back in the early 90s, when you had to communicate with people through the company, you literally typed a memo, and then you put it in an envelope, and then we all had mail codes to get it, you know, wherever it needed to go in the company. And so that's how we communicated, you know, and then there were, you know, when a meeting was really important, you would actually have them and they would be very productive. And, you know, they were usually smaller teams of people, you know, people you directly work with. But it was very different. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow. I can't even imagine. Cause I mean, even just as a guest in the parks over the years, I mean, we've seen changes and, things that, just evolving. I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? Disney never stops growing, evolving, changing, which I think is one of the best innovations, ever that a place could do, really, for us.
Yes.
I was wondering, I mean, it sounds like everything was the best part of what you did, but is there something you can share with us that was, or just tell us what was the best part of this career that you had with Disney?
My favorite thing to do was to make things move. And I know that sounds funny, but and actually as a show, there's a lot of groundwork that goes into creating a system. And then when you actually get all the stuff together and you make things move for the very first time, it's very exciting. And when you think of anything that moves in the park, I worked on the Main Street windows, the little tiny animations in those windows, to some big props like the guns on the AT-ATs and Rise of the Resistance.
That's crazy.
Whenever any of those things move, it's exciting still 30 years later. And so that was the best part. My favorite projects, though, were always the ones where there were really close-knit teams and everybody was working towards a common goal. And it was very much like what you would imagine, where people were, you pretty much picked up the paintbrush if you needed to, somebody get their job done. Say you wouldn't just be the show control engineer. You would help with whatever anybody needed. And it was a really nice time when it was, it was a nice time to know that you could touch a lot of other things. That, like I remember in Roger Rabbit, Joanne Cicero was the creative director of that, and he allowed me to place some bricks. I was so excited
Oh,
about that inside the Roger Rabbit ride. You know
oh,
what I mean? So he
fun.
goes,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, really? And so I got to put some bricks in there.
But that's cool. You left your
It was
imprint.
a baby,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It was a baby creative job, but it was fun because I wasn't just stuck in a computer room trying to make things go.
Right.
You know, it was very nice. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
think that it sounds like you guys really kind of became quite a family, because you're working on
yeah.
these projects for a very long time, like months
Yes,
and months,
right.
sometimes years, right? And
Yeah.
you all have the same vision, right? As far as having this
Mm-hmm.
come to fruition and share it with everybody. I was just curious to know, did you bring your parents to Fantasmic, and what was
Oh,
that like
yeah.
for what was that like the first time that they saw it and knew that you
They,
were part of that?
I think my dad still they're both gone now, unfortunately. But yes, I did try to bring them to as many events as I could. They lived in Colorado,
Yeah.
and but they would of course come out and visit, and they did come to Fantasmic, and you try to explain what you're doing over the phone to your parents, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
really they don't really understand it.
Yeah.
And then you sit them down and you're like, there. And then even then, I mean, when you think of all the people that worked on making that happen, pinpointing the pieces that you did that were part of it also are a little, abstract sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
But because my dad was an engineer, I could explain, a lot of the things, and he really did get it. And he was still alive even up until the 60th anniversary of Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to go I was able to show him the Main Street windows, and those are, and he saw them, and that was actually a really special moment for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, I can imagine. I mean, I think could you ever imagine while you're slogging away in engineering? Because I know what it's like. Well, I've got my husband, his first degree is an engineer, and I remember those days. Oh my gosh. But, to imagine, doing engineering and having fun with it. And I'm not saying that they're not having fun with it if they're not at Disney, but you know what I mean? It just kind of, you got to play at the same time, with
it really was like playing in a toy box. Yeah.
Awesome. Susie, I just want to ask before we wrap up here, but if someone wanted to do what you did, what are some words or some guidance, words of wisdom really, that you would share with them?
I would say, obviously you need to get all the credentials to be able to do, but there's so many avenues these days to do something very similar to what I got to do. Like, in grade schools now, they have purse robotics competitions.
Right.
And if you were to get on a team like that, you would understand all the pieces, because they have to, build the robot, build the control system, and write the software, and do all the pieces that make those competitions happen. And I'm really impressed these days by the way these kids can do that so well. And then of course, Disney actually nowadays too has this great internship program, and so depending on what age group you're at, I think you can get involved. And then, if somebody really, really wants to do it, I just say, don't give up if that's really what you want to do. There's the job, the number of jobs inside there, as you can imagine, are becoming so expensive. I mean, everything you could imagine is represented in some way or another there at the park,
Right.
So there's a lot of things to do to make everything happen, to make the magic happen.
Right.
And so
absolutely,
you can come at it from just about any angle you wanted to, and you could find something that you would fit there, So
Okay. And I mean, you didn't give up. It took you 6 years, but you kept going at it. And I think that's
kept going.
important.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself. You studied hard, you worked hard, and you owe it to yourself really to put the best foot forward, really, so to speak, to try to get what you want, right?
If that's your dream, you
Yeah.
need to do it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to. It's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth
Yeah.
it.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much, Susie, for spending some time with us on your Friday evening. I hope it's a little warmer in California than it is in Seattle here.
I looked at the map the other day, and I think it's the only one spot in the whole United States
That
right
is,
now.
oh,
So
yeah.
it
Oh,
is.
gosh.
It's very nice here.
Well, you have a
You're
wonderful
welcome.
weekend, and thanks again so much for sharing things. I mean, I always
Oh,
learn
you're
something new
welcome.
from you guys, and I just really appreciate you spending the time. And we'll chat more another time off the show, of course. And I look forward
Okay.
to that. All right.
That sounds awesome, Kimberly.
Th-
Thank you again.
oh,
All
thank
right.
you. Take care. All right. Good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh gosh, isn't she just so she's just so wonderful, really. I really enjoyed speaking with Susie a couple weeks ago, and then tonight. It's so fun to learn all kinds of new things, and I before we wrap up, I just want to say to hi to Beth, the pass holder pair, Walt and Melissa from Mouse Talk. Thank you so much for dropping in and enjoying the show. And I love interviewing all kinds of folks and Imagineers. Engineers are wonderful for some insight into the ground that goes into the magic that we get to experience at the parks or on the cruise ships or whatever. And I just want to anybody that joined a little bit late, just if you guys want to, it's a birthday weekend and my birthday weekend, and actually my son's birthday is on Monday, and my other son's the following week. So we have 3 birthdays in 8 days, and I'm not sure if I'm getting a birthday cake or birthday pie this year because sometimes that's an awful lot of birthday cake to consume in 8 days. But I do have a birthday fundraiser for a Moment of Magic Foundation, which are college students that dress in screen accurate costumes as princesses, princes, and superheroes and visit the medically vulnerable children in institutions, at their residences, often giving them their last wishes of maybe a tea party with a princess or something with a superhero. And you know what? In 2019, they actually met 38,000 children. Can you imagine 38,000 children? They made these beautiful wishes come true. And it's particularly close to my heart because the founder, Kylie McCrane, she is in the Positively Disney book series. When I found out about her, she was actually a senior in college when she was just starting to get this foundation off the ground. And her story, Power Princess, you can check it out. My goodness, she's an amazing human and has done so many wonderful things. But for now, guys, I'm going to wrap up the show. Have a wonderful week until we see you next week. Stay safe, be well, and God bless. Bye for now.